Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the BISP Morning Podcast. Today I'm joined by Miss Amber Godfrey and Miss Jacqui Brelsford. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi,
And today we're talking about, up until recently, quite a controversial but very relevant topic, which is mental health and well-being. So I'd like to start by asking Miss Godfrey, what do we mean by mental health?
Okay, yeah. So, to me, mental health means just sort of a real sense of peace, in your mind. So knowing and trusting that you can handle kind of any setback that comes to you. And it's really how we think, how we feel, how we act, and it's how we relate to others, right? So if we feel that in those areas, it's really difficult to relate to others, to handle adversity, then that might be a sign that our mental health is, suffering or it needs some attention. So to me, I think that waking up and feeling some sort of sense of ease and peace is how I define mental health.
Right, yeah. And you said about relating to others. Mm-hmm. So do you mean mental health is not just about our mental space, but also about how we interact with others and how we relate to them? Yeah,
sure. I think that perception is a really big part of that, right? Yeah. So if you're in a negative headspace, you can sort of interpret sort of any interaction, in ways that might not be how they're intended. So it's really important to recognize if you're coming up against a lot of conflict or struggling to relate to others, that might be about your mental health. It also might be about their mental health. I mean, it's ultimately communication as well. Yeah.
And how might it, Miss Brelsford, be connected to our physical health? They like to say, it's all connected. We've got to think about mind and body as working together, not two separate units as such.
Yeah, well, your mind is part of your body. Like, it's the same thing, right? So I don't think you can disconnect the two. How you sleep, you eat, the energy that you have, your ability to do physical things. Like, if you're not in a good mental space and you're tired and you're sort of negative, you're not going to perform physically in the best way. And vice versa, if you are dealing with something physical, it might be really hard to overcome it mentally. So I think the two things are the same. Yeah, your mind is your physical body.
Yeah. And do you think that when one starts to as such deteriorate, that the other one can be affected as well? What do you say?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think yes. Certainly, if we've got a sort of a physical injury or something going on, then that plays into your mind and vice versa. Yeah, I think they are really connected, and it can be a cycle, right? So I'm upset or stressed because I've been injured or I'm not feeling well, and then that might cause me to lose sleep or lose my appetite, which then I don't have the strength to battle that injury or that sickness, and then the cycle continues. So I think they do affect each other.
And I'd say it really is a cycle, isn't it? You feed positive and positive might grow. If you feed the negative part, then the negative part will grow. Mm-hmm. So we've got to really reinforce that positive mindset. And although it can be difficult when we really go to those dark spaces, would you say? How do we reinforce a positive mindset when we are feeling really down in the depths of, the darkness?
Yeah, that's a really big question, and one that's going to be different for everybody, because what brings people joy and positivity is going to be different for you, and it's going to be different for me. I think it's important to realize that it is cyclical, or it is, it's up and down. So just because you're in the darkness doesn't mean you'll always be in the darkness. Yeah, right. We were just with year one students having that conversation yesterday about how feelings come and go. And so having a good understanding of that, of the fact that, you can be sad, but once you go through that sadness, I believe that feelings are supposed to be felt. So you shouldn't ignore the sadness or ignore the anger, go through it. But then on the other side, the happiness might come back. So it does ebb and flow. And so when you're in that darkness, I think having good coping strategies that you already have in your toolbox and can easily access. So that's a lot about what we talk about with students is, just building that toolbox of things that can bring you out of the stress state or the dark space, as you called it. So maybe that's I don't know, having a playlist on your phone that is all your happy songs, and you can easily access that. You don't have to curate it in the moment of your darkness. It's already there and easily accessible. Or if you're already doing a mindfulness practice every day, regardless of whether you're happy or sad, you can easily call on that when you're feeling down, and you're already practiced in it. Or if physical activity is something you love to do, you can grab your trainers, go for a run, and you just have already got these things that bring you joy and bring you help with your mental health, so that when you are really down, you can draw on them quickly.
You have somewhere to go. I'd like to touch on what you said. Feelings are supposed to be felt. I really agree with that, because I think when we've got so much going on in our daily lives, then it's easy to suppress a bit of sadness or anger, whatever it is that you're trying to just ignore and put to the side for the moment. But is that when feelings can start to grow? Or perhaps if, on the other end of the spectrum, if we are paying too much attention to it, and we're saying, oh no, I'm stressed, that negative reaction might actually cultivate the stress even more. Would you say, Miss Godfrey?
Yeah, no, I really agree with that. I feel like it's sort of linked to mindfulness, what we were talking about earlier today, just how, you can notice the feelings. It's best not to ignore them. I think ignoring them is usually going to is not going to work in the end very well for you, because as you said, they will get bigger, but you don't want to hold on to these feelings so tightly that they become, your identity. You just kind of want to acknowledge them and again, recognize that they will pass and let them pass. But I do find in my experience, the longer that, I personally, or what I've seen, in students, the longer you try to push something away, it actually does grow and, get bigger. And then, similarly, if you put all of your focus onto this one feeling, then of course that's going to be the feeling that you're experiencing the most. So it's a balance. It's a balance.
I also think it's connected to the physical, what we were saying, like there's research and there's books and stuff out there that that really dive into if you're not dealing with your emotions and your feelings and your mental health, I guess is what we're calling it today. It can come out in a physiological way, in a physical way, so you might get stomach ulcers if you're really stressed and things like that. And so there are a lot of people who do believe that like literally not dealing with your feelings can have a physical impact on you and make you even sicker. And there's a time and a place to deal with emotions. If you're in the middle of class, you might not want to burst into tears and start sobbing, but if that that's what you're feeling, shelf it for that time and try and get on with what you're doing. But then that's where the counselors or your parents or a trusted adult or having a safe space where you can then go and deal with that emotion in the in an appropriate time or whenever you can. So you don't have to be in all your emotion all the time, but definitely don't ignore them.
So right place, right time, essentially.
Exactly.
So if we had a mental health continuum, say here is not well, here is quite well, where would we be on this continuum when we start to realize that our persistent sad mood has become a problem? Ms. Godfrey, do you want to touch on that?
Thinking about this, I think that there will be times where you will feel quite unwell, for a time. You might have some terrible news or some, big event happens and you really don't feel well, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you have a mental health, concern. I think, as you said, sort of if you're consistently like at a low mood and you find that the things that you used to do to make yourself feel better don't work anymore. Those strategies that you have, the run is not working, talking to friends or the playlist isn't working. And it's hard to get yourself out of that. That's when you'd think that you have, that you might want to pay it more attention, and recheck in with yourself, go get some help, and kind of maybe you have to learn some new strategies, or maybe you need to go see a doctor, but finding support for that. So I think it's just sort of that consistent, I think, normally on scales that I've seen used or assessments that I've seen used, you know, they sort of ask, like, in the last 2 weeks, have you felt, you know, this, you know, very low mood, you know, more, or how many times have you felt on this low mood? And, you know, if it's like 5 or 6 or, you know, more, then you really kind of see, oh, wow, every day I've woken up feeling very, very low and I can't seem to lift myself out of it. That's when I think that's a concern, right? But certainly if you have a day where you wake up feeling terrible or something just doesn't feel right, you know, that's okay. That's life. It's normal to have ups and downs. And
yeah, definitely. I think especially in the time of social media, and where photos, videos are very accessible and easy to share, then we can just see the highlight reel, and then, you know, we might compare it to our situation. Why isn't my life like a highlight reel? Oh, well, we haven't seen, you know, the full picture. And so yeah, it's really best not to compare yourself with others. And it's supposed to be, life is a roller coaster, right? Not life is a tangent straight line, you know, going up always, right? So, you know, then how would we say, how do we really know that we have a mental health issue? You know, maybe it's persistent and we realize, okay, this isn't right. I haven't been feeling well for a while. Then, you know, how do we move forward with it and go ask for help if we really don't feel like it?
Well, I think it's our goal at BISP is that every student should have a trusted adult to talk to. And, you know, we're here and we're, you know, it's our job to do that, but not everyone connects with everyone, and it's absolutely okay if you don't want to see the counselor, but it's our hope that everybody has someone, whether it's, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a boarding parent, a boarding matron, like anybody that they can reach out to. And I think that's really the first port of call is to just find your trusted adult. And if it feels like you don't have anyone, a friend, and to, you know, to people listening who are friends of people who might be struggling, you know, to really encourage your friends to go and find that trusted adult, someone just with a little bit more experience who can guide you in the right place.
Yeah, definitely. So we were talking about strategies before, maybe a happy playlist or a run, a mindful sit. Are there strategies that can apply to everybody? Because I know whenever I mention the word mindfulness or yoga, my friends kind of cringe at me, you know, they're like, don't say that word, you know, is there something that's applicable to all ages, all groups of people?
I mean, certainly one size does not fit all, and I've had that same experience, Chloe, when I mention mindfulness sometimes. But what I think is really important, something that's important to me, is the concept of compassion. So compassion for the self and for others. And I really feel like if you start there, if you're compassionate and kind to yourself and to others, that's a really great strategy to just kind of draw on, right? So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to sit down. You just have to be kind to yourself. So if you mess up, you know, it's okay. I'm all right. It's okay. Just sort of positive self-talk and compassion, and also gratitude. You know, I think that's also something that's pretty accessible, you know, to most people, to just be thankful for anything. You know, this chair that I'm sitting on is holding me up today, and maybe that's all that I can find gratitude for, but that's something, right? It can be really big. You know, you can be really into gratitude and expressing it, but sometimes that's hard to find. But I bet you could find one thing that you could be grateful for. So for me, compassion and gratitude are key. And as we mentioned, you know, finding someone to talk to, you know, an adult, trusted adult is best. And then also, I think some way to express yourself. Again, if you find talking difficult, you know, you don't know how to articulate your feelings, then is there another way that you can express what's going on inside, you know, and take it out of you a little bit? So that might be creatively, you know, it might be athletically. I find those two things are pretty accessible to, again, you know, our students here. Most students have something that they could do, you know, make or, you know, kick or something that is kind of an expression of whatever's going on inside. So those are my highlights.
I would say just don't underestimate sleep and food. It's really important.
Sure.
As students, as you know, as an IB student, sleep just goes out of the window. Like, people don't prioritize it, and it really is the first, it's just it's a one-way highway to bad mental health, like if you are not getting enough sleep. So no matter how much studying you think you need to do, how much homework you have, if you haven't slept, you literally cannot perform to the best of your abilities. So you have to prioritize sleep over anything else. I know that the world feels so much more difficult if I haven't had enough sleep. And the same with food, right? So I'm the first person to prioritize donuts or chocolate, when I'm feeling down. And there's a time and a place for that too, for that quick fix. But if you are consistently eating badly, food that's not nourishing you, that's also going to have an impact, because your energy is going to be low, and it just makes you feel sluggish, and you can't sort of be your positive, energetic self if you're physically feeling, gross.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're tired, you don't have the energy to hold yourself upright. You're automatically in this retreating slump, and I think that almost automatically tells your brain, I cannot face anything today, and also, heavy eyelids, you can't open your eyes to what's around you. And again, on what Miss Godfrey said about, channeling to external things, because when it doesn't feel so great internally, then maybe we just need to fill our cup with some positive juice, in a sense. If that doesn't sound too bizarre, it's just been breakfast. But yeah, so when we're not feeling so good in here, then we really need to notice our surroundings, or say, look, I've got all these great opportunities, let's take advantage of them and not just stay in this space. So if we have had mental health problems, physical health problems, well-being is the entire body, isn't it? Mind, body, whatever. But will these problems always return? Can we fully get rid of them forever?
I mean, that's a great question. I certainly, I think for some, you can maybe sort of resolve a problem and maybe put it away. But I really think that, we're going to be facing challenges throughout life. I think that's kind of what life is about. I think that the trick is finding out how to cope with challenges and setbacks. So what have you learned from previous experiences, maybe where you did go through a mental health struggle and you learned sort of some new strategies from that, or maybe it was a terrible time and it was really difficult, but you've learned something because you're on the other side of it. So really, I think resilience, like recognizing your own resilience, like the fact that we're sitting here today means that we have been through challenges and we came out on the other side. We're still here. We're all right. So yeah, that is it's possible that we will revisit and we have to relearn things, but I think that with every difficult experience we are growing and learning and getting stronger, so we can combat it a little bit better the next time. Would you say that sometimes when we've been through a difficult period, is the thought of another, tricky time, can that scare us and can that be upsetting, off-putting, and almost put us directly back into that bad space? Sure, I could see that happening.
I mean, I think worrying about the future and worrying what's coming is probably one of the biggest things that puts people into sort of low moods. But you can't control what's happening in the future. Like, no one can predict it, so worrying about it is completely useless, I was just thinking of that song from when we were kids. It was like, worrying is as useless as trying to solve an algebra problem by chewing bubble gum. Do you remember that, from the Everyone's Wear Sunscreen? No. That song. Anyway, so I just was thinking of that, like, worrying doesn't help with anything. And so yes, the future might be scary and the thought of what's to come might be scary, but again, we keep coming back to mindfulness. I think it's because we just did a mindfulness sit this morning. But it's, think about the present, like, what can you control right now? And as we've learned with COVID, like, everything is changing. You've got to be able to change with it and be flexible. And so just deal with the right here and the right now, and see what happens. The future can be scary. It can also be fantastic. Like, you don't know what's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's also the beauty and the darkness of the future, isn't it? We don't know if something bad is going to happen, but we don't know if something really positive is going to happen as well. So always hold out, you know, there is always hope. So next, I wanted to talk about our surroundings. And I think, you know, we talk a lot in psychology about genetics, but also how the environment can play a factor in expressing them. And I think it's the same principle in terms of mental health. Do you think that the people we surround ourselves with, the environment we are in, can affect our mental health?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I mean, it's we're all connected, right? In the same way that the mind and the body are connected, like I think we are all connected to each other. So certainly if you find that your surroundings don't seem to be lifting you up, you know, that is something to just look at. So yeah, you can, you know, I'm always just encouraging people to try to connect with people that just make them feel, you know, comfortable and at ease, or if not people, you know, surroundings. Like where is, you know, I've even suggested, where on this campus can you sort of sit? Where's a nice place that feels, you know, okay? So can you make sure that you go to that place today, or find that place in nature, or, you know, in your room, you know, what can you control about your room or your surroundings that feels, you know, true to you? So yeah, absolutely. I mean, then again, it's also natural for your friends to also sometimes, you know, be in difficult spots. So that's okay. Like we certainly also don't want to give a message that, you know, you can't express that you're feeling, you know, not well mentally, for fear that then you would affect others, right? Yeah. So just be yourself, you know, but also pay attention to who is lifting you up ultimately, right? Who just lifts you up. And if you're struggling with that, then again, that's something else that you can talk to an adult about. Like, how do I kind of find my people or my place, right?
Yeah, I think, but what about, you know, in a small community like this one, if we do find ourselves surrounded by a negative thing or a negative person, I see a lot on self-help videos, on articles, you know, expel that negative person from your life. And I'm like, well, okay, how viable is it to do that? You know, what can we do in that situation, Miss Brelsford?
Wow. Expelling people from life. I definitely...
Doesn't sound too good,
yeah,
does
it doesn't sound good. I think it's kind of like the feelings. If you ignore someone or just like exclude someone from your life or from your world, or like ignore that feeling, it's just going to fester, right? So unless you kind of come to terms with that negative person or place or experience, again, you might have to lean into it a little bit and be like, why am I so upset by this person? Or why am I so affected by this experience? And so it might be tough in the first instance to really like lean into that negativity, but I think ultimately becoming at ease with that person is way healthier and better for your mental health than excluding them, because expelling them, it kind of still means that they hold a real negative like meaning, and it also probably takes a lot of energy for you to ignore them, whereas if you just kind of accept them, and it links back to what Miss Godfrey said about compassion. So, you know, having your own self-compassion, but also having compassion for other people. And that doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everybody all the time, but realizing that everyone has their struggles. You know, what did you learn from that negative experience? What did that person, you know, make you realize about yourself that ultimately has made you a better person? You know, it's hard, but finding the compassion and finding the gratitude for those negative experiences is way healthier than just, you know, ignoring them or expelling them from your life.
Yeah.
I also think that figuring out how to kind of communicate well to everyone in your life is going to be key. So, sometimes, you can sort of let somebody know that this action is upsetting, to me, or that you would prefer, a different approach in our interactions, and so that also links to kind of boundaries as well. And so just being clear about, what is and isn't acceptable to really kind of go into my orbit. And that, that certainly doesn't mean you have to expel anybody, but you don't need to invite, into your inner orbit, everybody, right? You can be clear and draw that boundary. But I think that's a really important piece of just acceptance and
Yeah, definitely. And also just, having, like you said, the boundary with people, limiting or increasing the time with someone depending on how valuable your time is with them can also be really important, right? Because I think, as we said, the more you suppress something, try to hide something, it's gonna pop up everywhere, so thank you for that. Also, with our surroundings comes, nowadays especially, our gadgets. So social media, we are constantly surrounded by other people's messages and posts if we are on social media platforms. And I think also in terms of entertainment, like TV shows, films, books, one really common and popular topic to talk about, is mental health, to display on our screen. The protagonist goes through waves of happy, sad. Can what we see on the media or in the film industry, say, can that influence our mental health and how we perceive mental health?
Yes, absolutely. This is something that I personally really live by. There are things that I won't watch, and there are, I know that I need to surround myself with, happy, cheesy TV in order for it to be sort of my escapism. Like I couldn't watch Squid Games, for example. I was like, that is a place I do not need to go for my own mental health, right? So I think it's really important what you take in, There are actually some cultures that believe like what you watch and what you see like does actually affect your soul. And so I'm not sure I believe it that much, but I think it does. Like it's everything that's you're experiencing, is being processed in your brain in some way. So if you're seeing lots of violence, lots of negativity, lots of stuff that's just not making you feel good about yourself or your life, then why engage with it? There's loads of stuff out there that is the opposite, that is really happy and uplifting. And social media and the comparison, because all social media is doing is showing you, like you said, the highlights reel, and it's showing you the version of other people's lives that they want you to see. And if that's not bringing you joy, and if it's not filling your cup with juice, then there is literally no reason to engage with it. Mute those people, unfollow people, and follow the people that you really love. Or even better, don't engage with it at all and spend your time doing something else, rather than scrolling through the social media streams. Yeah,
definitely. And I think what you said about, what we watch is some way being processed by our brain. I think just going back to when we were all children, when our mum and dad said, do not, watch the scary movie, on Halloween or something, because, you would be peering around the corner. You maybe couldn't go upstairs by yourself because you're terrified of this imaginary monster. And that's our brain processing something, in our heads. And I think the same can be used today, even if it's not a scary movie, but if it is something negative, then our brain is always processing things and always trying to make sense of things, isn't it? So choose wisely what you are immersing yourself with.
Yeah, because it is consumption, right? It's the same as food, right? So just be careful of what you're consuming, right? So a little bit of donut TV, is okay sometimes, right? Like a little bit of something, but that can't be your whole diet, of something that's negative.
Yeah, sure. So how do we move on next? Such a big topic, isn't it? Finally, what I want to ask is, I want to ask both of you, how can we make ourselves more robust in handling, you know, these issues, because we have to deal with things constantly in our everyday lives, and it is impossible to channel out all negativity. So how do we make, in a sense, ourselves a bit of a suit of armor or a shield, you know, from things that aren't serving us?
I would say do it while you're happy. So don't wait until you're feeling the sadness or the anger or the frustration. Like start building that resilience when you're still in a really good place, because then it's practiced. You already have, you know, you have the muscle memory to do the mindfulness or to go for that run, and it's not as much of a chore as if you're trying to get yourself to do something new when you're already feeling rubbish, you know. So build those practices up in the good times as well as the bad, and experiment. Like, not everything is going to work well for everybody, and so, you know, if mindfulness isn't your thing, like, that's completely okay. Maybe it's going for, like, I don't know, 3-kilometer swim back and forth, doing laps in the pool. Like, that to me sounds really boring, but I know for some people that's amazing, right? And so, you know, and for others, I love Pilates. I like doing stuff that makes me feel strong. Maybe it's reading a book, right? So some people love to get their head stuck in a book. Maybe it's, again, that Spotify playlist, or that, you know, whatever playlist of happy songs. Like, curate that list while you're still happy. And so, you know, make things really easy. I know students who put, you know, uplifting messages like on the screensavers of their phones, you know, like, or, you know, or have an album of pictures that make you happy, or quotes that will lift you up. Have, you know, we talked about surrounding yourself with good people. So, you know, hopefully you can find people in your life that if you're feeling down, you can, you know, send them a message and just be like, dude, I need you right now, you know, and you've got that person who comes to you and you can just talk it out without judgment. So building up that toolkit and that armor, you know, while you're in a good place, means that it's easier to get when you're in the hard times too. Yeah,
thanks. And Miss Godfrey, what would you say?
All of that.
Times two.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was a really great answer. But then, also just having compassion for yourself. You know, like, if you feel like none of it's working, you know, that's okay. Don't judge yourself. You know, where I think we're all really afraid of judgment. So just watch that, you know, just watch if you notice that you're being very harsh with yourself, if something's not working, or if you can't lift yourself up, it's okay, right? So maybe you need to go back to the drawing board, or you need to talk to somebody about it. You know, that's, I think, that's just my main message. Just be kind to yourself in the way that you would be kind to a friend. You know, if you see a friend who's struggling, most students that I ask, like, if someone was going through this, you know, what would you say to them? How would you help them? And they have great answers, you know, yet it's sometimes really hard to do that for yourself. So just kind of really acknowledge the messages that you're giving to yourself. And if you're finding it hard to give some positive messages to yourself, then, you know, come to us and we'll give them we'll give them to you. All day, every day.
So also patience. Just if those things aren't working, then wait it out and see when they do start to work again, because they will start working again.
And don't for a single second think that everyone else is fine and you are the only one that's struggling. Like, that is absolutely not true. And whether, you know, just about us in this room, whether today I'm having a bad day, but tomorrow it could be you, you know, next week it could be Miss Godfrey, and it'll go and up, it'll ebb and flow, and you could be having a terrible day, but I don't know that. So don't assume that everyone, just because they're presenting as happy, is happy. Like, everyone is struggling and everybody needs help. So give yourself a break and just, you know, get that help and do stuff that makes you happy, rather than just sitting in the bad stuff. There's no need for that.
Everything is as it should be.
And there's so much help at this school, you know.
There is. This is the place to express yourself. Definitely. Thank you very much, ladies. It was a great talk, and I think our viewers really appreciate it as well. This is something that everybody goes through: mental, physical, emotional struggles. So I'm really glad that we touched on this today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.